Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're creating a rustic, scratch-built shed using popsicle sticks, foam core, and soda cans. It's simple, it's creative, and it's going to look amazing. So relax, grab your popcorn, and let's bring this little shed to life. Before I jump into any build, I always start with a simple thumbnail sketch. It doesn't have to be fancy. This stage is all about capturing the basic shape, proportions, and key measurements. Think of it as the blueprint that sets the tone and helps me picture how the shed will look once it's finished. I start by marking a cut line with my pencil. Then I trim off the rounded tips on each end with my cutting pliers. That leaves the popsicle stick at its final length of 5¼ inches.
Many unbearable hours later.
And here they are, all 50 popsicle sticks trimmed to length, squared off, and ready to go. Off camera, I went ahead and trimmed all of the shed's panels out of black foam core. I spared you the boring part of me having to cut these. All of these pieces will serve as the foundation, giving us a solid base to glue the wooden panels onto. I start the shed assembly by temporarily holding 2 of the walls together with painter's tape. It's a quick trick to keep them steady while I move on to the next step, gluing them in place with my glue gun. Squeeze a bead of hot glue into the inside corner, square it up by eye, and hold it for a few seconds until the bond sets. Using a sharp X-Acto knife, I'll trim out the door opening. After all, you'll need a way to get inside the shed, even if it's just pretend. Now I'll glue the other 2 opposite walls in place, using the same method as before. And here's how the 4 walls look once they're all joined together. Next, I'll add the inner roof piece, which will support the final roof assembly that goes on top. Once it's in position, I tilt the structure onto its side and glue along the interior to lock it firmly in place. To add depth to the entrance, I glue a small piece of foam core behind the doorway, aligning it so it sits flush in place. Next, I'll start at one corner and begin gluing on the vertical popsicle sticks I trimmed earlier. They don't need to line up perfectly. Remember, this is a rustic shed, so a little unevenness just adds character. Now the back of the shed. With all the vertical wood pieces in place, I went off camera to trim the horizontal slats for the gable ends. Spared you again from watching more mindless cutting. After finishing the other gable end, I move on to adding the corner framing details to cover up all the visible open joints. Even though this is a rustic build, you still want it to look the part, just without going overboard. To clean up the open joint between the gable end and the bottom wall, I add a horizontal strip to cover the transition. Now that all the wood components are in place, it's time to introduce the shed to my little scraper friend. This wire tool adds those long weathered scratches you'd find on old wood that's been left out in the elements, kind of like giving the shed a few battle scars. To really give the shed its personality, I'm finishing it with Minwax penetrating stain number 283, aged barrel, a color that makes it look like it's been baking in the sun for years. Before applying the stain, be sure to wear nitrile gloves, protective clothing, and work in a well-ventilated area. Give the stain a gentle stir. Using a foam brush, I apply a generous coat, making sure it works its way into every nook and crevice for an even finish. Finally, wipe away any excess until you're happy with the finish.
1 week later.
Now that the stain has dried, here's how it looks. Next comes my favorite part, adding the weathering. For this I'll be using ivory black, burnt umber, burnt sienna, and deep green. I'm using a small plastic paint palette and setting out 4 acrylic colors in the cups. I think these colors will work nicely for weathering the shed using the dry brush method. I begin on the front facade using a large round brush, starting with burnt sienna, then layering burnt umber and finally ivory black. The strokes move from the bottom up, and if too much paint gets on the brush, the excess is simply wiped off on my cardboard panel. To bring out the wood grain with a touch of warm highlights, I'm using vanilla acrylic paint from Craft Smart. Here, I'm using a very light touch to gently highlight the wood grain. It's already starting to look really good. To make the shed accessible, it needs a doorknob, and this socket cap screw does the trick. I filled the top with hot melt glue, then painted it black to finish it off. First, I'll drill a 1/4 inch through hole in the door. Then insert the screw/door knob into the hole. And lastly, securing it with hot melt glue from the inside. Now it's time for the corrugated metal roof. For this, I'm using an empty soda can. I start by cutting off the top cap first. Careful here, the edges can be sharp. Then I carefully trim off the bottom cap as well, again, watching out for those sharp edges. Using scissors, I make a straight cut down the side of the aluminum can to open it up flat. To turn it into a usable panel, I first trim away the razor-sharp edges with a utility knife, taking extra care as I go. Then I rotate the piece and trim along the other side to finish it off. To create the look of corrugated roofing, I'm using a metal toothpaste tube squeezer. I slide the flattened aluminum sheet into the tool, crimp it down, and turn the knob to press the ridges, instantly transforming it into corrugated metal. Here are all the pieces that will make up the roof, and believe it or not, it took a whole 6-pack of soda cans to create these miniature corrugated panels. Now I'll use hot melt glue to attach the corrugated roof panel. Only one problem. I forgot aluminum transfers heat really fast. Okay, learning from my last mistake, I'm using this scrap piece of wood to absorb the heat this time, and not my fingertips. Let's give it another go at it and see if it works. Yep, lesson learned. So far, so good. Finally, the last corrugated panel is set into place, so now the shed's ready to handle any rain, hail, or angry birds. At this point, I temporarily tacked the metal roof in place with hot melt glue so I could attach the ridge pieces, which will hide the joint between the corrugated panels. Again, trying very hard not to get burned a second time. At last, the final ridge is set in place. Onward to more weathering. To prime the metal roof and give it that rusty look, I'm using Rust-Oleum's Rusty Metal Primer. It's an oil-based formula that soaks into bare metal and bonds tightly, creating a solid surface for just about any finish coat to stick to.
Several days later.
Here's how the corrugated metal roof looks like after curing for several days. Off camera, I cut more popsicle sticks to size and stained them to match the rest of the shed. These will cover the foam core edges and give the shed the authentic look of a finished roof line. And here's the roof, fully assembled with the fascia in place. Now comes the fun part, weathering it. Using the same weathering technique as before, the roof is now finished, and it feels great to see it done. We're in the home stretch, so let's attach it to the rest of the shed and wrap up this build. I used an old box and cut 2 triangular sections, making a simple jig to hold the roof while gluing. Once the jig held everything steady, I flipped the roof upside down, added hot melt glue to the underside, then aligned the shed over it and pressed it firmly into place. And there you have it, a 1:18 scale rustic shed, perfect for dioramas of all kinds. It works great with 3 3/4-inch action figures, but it could just as easily be part of a farm scene, a junkyard setup, or even the corner of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. However you use it, it adds that extra bit of added realism and character to any display. If you enjoyed this project and want to support the channel, head over to my Etsy shop at toyandpropmasters.etsy.com. You'll find unique handcrafted props, rare collectible toys, and antiques that are perfect for fans, collectors, and anyone looking for something truly special. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and share it with fellow fans. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.